Finally, the time has come. You no longer have to choose between conventional medicine and alternative medicine. Today, unlike years past, your team of doctors from all disciplines are working together side by side for the benefit of you, the patient, to help you regain your health and cross the bridge.
Welcome to Legal Straight Talk on Public Television Channel 20. I'm Brett Harrison from the Harrison Law Group, and I'm proud and happy to have Don Hochler back. Don, thanks for coming again. Don, last time we talked about how to collect money for your own business so you don't have to potentially hire a lawyer, and different ideas in how to make their business more profitable. Because at the end of the last show that you and I did, you said the bottom line is it's not what you make, it's what you keep. But now I want to take it in a little bit of a different direction. I happen to know Don for a number of years, and he is one of the best networkers. Don, today I want to talk a little bit about networking and how to build your business with networking. And what I've noticed from you and listening to you a number of times and seeing you at so many networking events, the ones that I do go to, is you've showed that you could network without it costing you a lot of money and make some invaluable connections that might not lead the first day, the second time, not even a month. You don't know. 5 months, 6 months, next week. Just things happen by being there. Ideas, different speakers that you meet could really benefit your business. So why don't you take it from there for a little bit?
Well, after graduating law school, you're out, you have a shingle. What are you going to do for clients? So people work for firms, and some people start out their own businesses. I worked for many different firms, and then when I was about 50, I went out on my own. I had lost a major client, and my partner said, "We love you, but you have to start bringing in business." And
It's not what you did for us last year or yesterday. What are you going to do for us in the future?
Right.
Because one thing they don't teach you, and I don't mean to interrupt you, but I think this is important for young lawyers or people that are in law school. One thing that they don't teach you in law school is the business of law. You could be the most brilliant person, but bottom line, the law is a business. You have to be able to either produce money or bill or have clientele, because that's what it's about. And I don't think they talk enough about that in law school.
Well, again, new clients, it's the lifeblood of any business.
Exactly.
And as a young person, as a young lawyer, my father's from a blue-collar background, and the idea was work hard and you'll be rewarded. But that's not really the reality of life, because as I've seen in law firms, and I'm sure other businesses, you can always hire people to do the work, but you have to develop that work. How do you develop that work?
We call it in the legal business the rainmaker.
The rainmaker, right.
What do they always say? And this isn't to put down Harvard, because I think Harvard's great. You can always hire a Harvard lawyer, but it's bringing the business. Meaning you could always hire, like you just said, a lawyer to do the work, or a paralegal, or what have you. The value is in bringing in the client and also being attentive to the client, obviously.
The thing about networking is it doesn't happen the first day, and you have to decide what type of group is good for you. If your area of concentration is in the, let's say, employment industry. Maybe you join employment organizations. If you're in the medical industry, maybe you try to get on a hospital board, something like that. So it's applicable not only to lawyers, but again, general business.
But also something that's interesting, and I've seen you at a number of events, that you don't just network with lawyers. You network with a lot of different people because you don't know where that's going to lead. Like, let's say, for example, if you're into wills, trust, and estate as an attorney, you might want to work with accountants. You might want to work with people outside of your specialty. It doesn't have to be lawyers networking with lawyers.
It's funny you say that because a lot of lawyers, they're overprotective and don't want to work with other lawyers as far as developing business. And it's absolutely true. When I started out networking, I worked with groups where there were very few lawyers. And what you want to do, again, as a lawyer, as an accountant, as an insurance salesman, as a financial planner, you want to be seen as a resource. You want people in the group that you go to, that you develop, to see you and go, I know he's a financial planner, but he's really a sharp guy or sharp woman, and he has a good business sense. I wonder if he can recommend me to an accountant, if he can recommend me to someone who leases out commercial space. You become the resource. I'm a legal resource. And over time, I developed an attorney networking group, a second attorney networking group. But it's out there across the board for any type of business. And some tips for networking, if I may.
Sure.
If you hear about groups, and again, some events cost a lot of money and then you don't get the bang for your buck. So I think early on it's good to pick and choose and see what works best for you.
Because you know what, traditionally when you're getting out of law school or a new attorney, what's the one thing they say? You got to join the bar associations, you got to join some type of judicial network, or try to meet judges, try to meet. But as now you see that while it is very valuable to be part of the bar association and other types of legal networks, there are so many other networks now. It seems like a lot of business is being done or started, or your connections all start from actual, believe it or not, it's not just on the internet anymore. So many people are losing that communication ability,
Absolutely.
It's so nice when I can just, instead of saying, let me Google Don Hochler, I never met him, let me email him something. It's so impersonal. You don't get a good feel for the person. Where you're speaking with someone one-on-one and you've seen them enough times, or it's in the morning, and I've seen you at some networking groups where they have breakfast, and you're getting a glass of orange juice, a bagel, and you're sitting down. You say, "Do you mind if I sit?" Sure. Some even have names on it, and you say, "Hey Don, what kind of work do you do?" And then you just go off in tangents. Sometimes you just find you have other connections, and then you'll say, "You know what? Let me introduce you to Dave over here. I know he would be interested." And then all of a sudden, and I think a lot of times now, people and young people have lost that ability, because it's not about just texting. It's about the contact. It's about, like you said, sometimes you just gotta have a feel.
Well, it's very important to press the flesh. There was a commercial on a few years ago about a business,
Right.
and they were losing business to competitors, and the owner of the business passed out plane tickets. And what he did, he gave the employees, he wanted them to go back to older customers. Pressing the flesh, impressing them with your personality in person is much more important. It's nice to have a website, but if you're not out there networking, if your subordinates are not networking, you're going to be losing out, because there's a million websites. But if you go to the networking events, the people you meet are always the tip of the iceberg, and you can't ask first. You have to establish a credibility with them, and you're a resource for them. And again, as a professional, I think we have somewhat of an advantage. You're given a predisposition that I might know something a little more. Maybe. But there's a lot of lawyers. And the lawyer who goes and networks and makes himself available, donates his time. I'm on some charitable boards. I was on the board of the North Shore L.I.J. Katz Women's Hospital, Commerce and Industry Council. I'm on the board of the Health and Business Alliance. You really have to put in time. You can't go to a networking group once or twice and say, I'm quitting, I didn't get anything. You really must put in the time.
So I think what's interesting, and going along with your point, might be, while the social media and the networks, social media and email and so forth are important, you can utilize social media to find out about different groups, about different people, but you still need to have that, the flesh, talking to someone, getting to know them.
Well, again, I think it's important you make use of the social media, Facebook, LinkedIn.
Make use of it, but don't just rely on it.
If you rely on it, you'll be sitting in an empty office.
Right. You can do it from home.
That's right.
But I think part of being, and I have always found, part of being a successful lawyer or in any business is the ability to listen. And when you're with somebody face to face, when you're sitting down with them, it's a lot different than somebody typing and responding on social media. I think people respect that more. I know with my clients, I say, we can talk on the phone or via email. Why don't you do me a favor? Why don't you come in? Let's talk about your case. Let's go through your file. And I find that they're far more responsive. There's that sense of trust that I have an interest in them. And not only that, we don't just talk about their case. You find out, you learn a lot about the person and, what they may do, what issues are going on in their life, because that affects, as a lawyer, you have to size up your client and say, well, you know what? They're going through a certain thing. They're going through a difficult time right now, or they may not be, like you may say, or I may say, they may not be the best witness on the stand. They don't necessarily answer a good question, or, you know what, right now, emotionally, I don't think they could handle what could happen. Let me try to come up with a solution that I think is going to best fit into the circumstances they're in, from a financial, emotional, and the ability, honestly, when you're sizing up whether you could win a case, if you should go all the way to trials, will they be a good witness? And you don't get that via text. You get that from knowing the other side and taking an interest. And I think people, when you take an interest in them, they appreciate that you're not saying, well, what am I going to make from you? How much am I going to do? And then when you go on charitable boards, people see that other side of you. And a lot of times you'll get pulled aside, hey, Don, do you know anybody that can do this? Or they may not even realize that, let's say, for example, that you can do collection work. Wow, that's great. You know what? I don't need it, but my friend over here does. And that's the stuff that happens at these networking. I mean, you're far more experienced with it than I am, but... So why don't you explain a little further how that's really built a lot of your practice over the last, some of these important connections?
Well, I joined a few groups early on, and some would fit and some didn't fit, but I think you have to be persistent about going. But you can't be a hard sell. A hard sell is a big turnoff. I go to a lot of events and people right away want to give you their card. And I don't know anything about them. I don't know anything about their history, but I think it's important, whoever you meet, to give them courtesy and time. If they're taking the time to speak to you, look them in the eye. Your eye shouldn't be diverted. You shouldn't be on your cell phone. It's consciously and even subconsciously, it's a turn-off. So if they're speaking to you, if they want to meet with you, now, I know you're a trial attorney, you're in court a lot, I'm in court a lot, I can't meet very often. But if I think there may be some value, I meet them. Even sometimes if I don't think there's going to be value. You want to give them the courtesy because they are the tip of the iceberg. You never know if you're kind to someone. If you do the right thing for people, it absolutely comes back. It's not just, it's not just a slogan. It really is true. I had a situation where I was recommended to a doctor. I sent out a demand letter, and I got paid right away. I got a check, and that very rarely happens. Not that I don't write a good letter, but so I got paid, and I turned it over to the doctor. And the doctor says, what do I owe you? And I knew he represented a big group, and I really didn't do very much. I said, you know what, doctor, this one's on me. And a few weeks later, he invited me. There was a major hospital in Queens that was going out of business. It was going bankrupt. And I went against the biggest firm in the city. I brought in 2 colleagues, and we got the work. Why did we get the work? Because I really believe because he was in charge and because I did him the right thing. So I think it's really important. I really believe in positive thinking and doing positive, even as a collection attorney. I think if you do the right thing for people and if you show up enough, good thing is going to happen for you.
They also get good things happen because if they have a good feeling about you, that you're straightforward, you're honest, and they'll say, well, you know what, Don told me from the start, it's I don't know the chance of us collecting. It may not be great, but he already told me from the outset, and he's straight up with us. He's honest. So, and that's what people want. A lot of times they want that communication. They want, just tell me the truth. Do I stand a good chance of collecting? Do I not? You know, and I think that's important for people. And you don't get that by just going on the internet.
Well, again, we're competing with younger people, and I have some younger people working for me, and they can run rings around me on the internet, with the website, with Twitter, so on and so forth. But they're reluctant very often to make the phone call. Like you said, they rely on text. Very often, I want to pick up the phone. I had a medical practice I was referred to, and I had a conversation with the guy, and I wasn't sure how it was going. And I said, you know what? I'm going to be in your area. Why don't I come and meet you and your partners? The personal touch is very helpful. And, you know, you can spend money on an advertising budget, and I believe in advertising. I think it's very good.
Right.
But there's no better advertising than a satisfied client. And don't be afraid if you're doing something good for a client. Say that the client says, wow, you did a great job. Is there anything I can do for you? Yeah. You know, anybody who's in your situation who might make use of my resources. Another thing as far as networking, take an interest in your clients. There are different magazine articles, different things that appear, different blogs. If you send them a message, something that they had an interest in.
But see, now that goes back to when I was saying, when you're sitting down with your client one-on-one or their partners, and you're listening to them about their interests, they realize now, you know, that Hochler guy, he really was listening. He took an interest out in me. Besides just the legal work he was doing for us, he really took an interest. Look, he just sent me an article on the Greek islands because he knew I was interested in whatever.
Right. If you can humanize, people are disarmed. Also at networking events, if you don't do the hardcore sell, if you meet somebody, you're introduced, make it about them. And if you make it about them, they're more likely than to ask maybe about you. I never really asked for business at the first. I really very rarely ask for business. They ask me. They look at me as a resource. I'm a recommendation, and then we take it from there.
But you know what's great? When you're the resource guy, the fact is that if someone asks you for some type of legal work that you don't do and you refer it to another attorney, you know what? That other attorney that you referred is now going to say, you know what? I got to get some. If something comes along, I got to remember Hochler. You know, Don was good to me. He referred this to me. He referred this to me. You know, they're also, now you have another person looking for, you know, maybe that may refer something to you as well.
See, when I started networking, I thought about the quid pro quo right off the bat. But the more I learned in my first 6 months to a year, I was really not able to do very much for the other people. I was genuinely shocked and surprised what people were prepared to do for me. Invite me to things, take me to things, recommend me before I was able to do for them. So now,
and why do you think that was? What do you think it was that you did at these networking events that you think could be a good lesson to old, young, or anybody that's going into
as you mentioned before, I think being a good listener, and don't be asking and don't be grabby, and get them to talk about themselves, get them to feel good about themselves. And again, as an older person, middle-aged person, I have kids in my 20s, if you're able to do a favor, if they're asking for a favor about their kids and you're able to do it, you know, you got them. It's a nice thing to do, but people remember if you do something for them. And also, very honestly, it's okay to say no for your own well-being.
You can't. That's an important thing. You can't say yes to everything.
Right. But you have to be nice about it, and you suggest an alternative. You can't say yes to everything. You'll never get out of your own way.
And now, where do you find some of these networking groups? Do you find them like I see in the Newsday, for example, Long Island Newsday? You see advertising for the week. There's a networking group here. There's a networking group, Woodbury, Greenvale. Everywhere you go, there's a lot of networking groups. Where else do you recommend people find some of them?
Well, from your business associates, I think it's good to be humble. If you see someone you admire. I started networking in my early 50s, and if I ran into someone and I thought they were successful, I took it upon myself to say, hey, listen, I try to become interested in them and see what they suggest. Don't be afraid to ask people for help. You don't want to be destitute. You don't want to be needy. But if you can do it in a positive way, people like to be a resource. People like to feel good about themselves.
So you're saying then, like when you started back out again in your 50s,
right,
it was okay to say, hey, listen, I just went out on my own. If you can refer either a good networking group or a place that you think would be a good fit for me, that people, like you said, are a lot more aligned to help when you're not asking them for anything directly.
Right. And I think it's also, this is another important tip, know what you do, okay?
Meaning what
if someone says to me, well, Mr. Hochler, I met you, you're an attorney. I always hear a lot of people say, you're an accountant, you're a financial planner. What kind of client are you looking for? I'm looking for anything. You have to develop a niche concept. You have to have, and as an attorney you can't say you're a specialist, but you have to have areas of concentration in any type of business. You can do a lot of things. As an attorney, I do lots of things. But I think it's good to have areas of concentration in your particular business. If you're an accountant, you can have areas of concentration. Know how to do a lot of things, but try to concentrate, because you can't be good at everything.
So when somebody asks you, Don, can you do this? You'd say, I understand your issue, but that's not really what I'm comfortable in doing. I would recommend you to someone I think would be a better fit that can handle it. I think that shows a sense of, you know what, as much as I would like to take it, I want to make sure you're getting service the right way. Let me refer you to someone who I think could really handle and focuses on your area, is what you're saying.
Well, again, I'm in a unique situation because I run an attorney networking group. We had an event at Jewel. We had 135 people there. So I can really refer out, okay? I think if you try to do too much, and as an attorney, you can't do what you don't know how to do. Yes. It's bad for the client, and it's bad for you. And again, I keep relating it to attorneys, but in any profession. It's always good to try to align yourselves with positive people, with people that can do different things. Today in basketball, there are guards that do multiple things. There are players that they play different positions. It's important in any profession to know how to do lots of things. So continue as an attorney. You have to take 24 credits every 2 years. We continuously have to go for education. Whatever field you're in, continue to get educated. Take a computer class. Be up on the new things. And then it's funny, your peers, particularly if you're older, they'll look on you, wow, he knows how to do that. He knows how to Twitter. He knows how to do that. It's important, and it has value.
So you're also, by being out there, you're also keeping current.
Right.
You're also understanding trends. You're also, a lot of times could be, you've gotten in many invites to things that you normally might not. And things that you anticipated, you know what, I don't know, if you initially thought, what kind of value am I going to get? But from your experience, you're saying, you know what, I don't know. Let's see what happens. And it seems like half the battle is showing up.
Look, you and I went to an event, we were invited, and there was a gentleman from China.
Yeah.
And you tell this story. That was a networking event, and you really maximized the most out of it. I mean, his clients, if I'm not mistaken, were Nike and the NBA, and we're just two local small firm attorneys, and you made the most of the opportunity. I was invited by a client, and you know the guy as well, right. But it turned into something really powerful.
It was a good learning experience, and what I found that was great about that learning experience with the Chinese gentleman you're talking about was that I learned to think about other cultures a little bit differently. And I mean, his focus was, you have to, for example, if you're dealing with the Chinese community or any culture, you got to understand the way that community and that culture thinks. And it could be invaluable. And he showed us a quick thing about, in this case, I think he was dealing with Barnes & Noble. And he came up with a new type of marketing for them to the Chinese community. He says, why don't you give out, I think it was $88 gift cards instead of 100. And I don't get it. And he said, let me tell you why. 88's a good luck number, and it'll show the Chinese community that you understand them. And a little simple thing like that, understanding the other cultures, understanding the communities that you want to deal with, becomes invaluable. And there's an example of a lesson that, quite honestly, I definitely wouldn't have understood until I actually heard it, and the value in understanding that. And he showed the value in positioning yourself, how you position yourself in that market, that he was with Barnes & Noble, how to bring in the Chinese community. And that was a fascinating, I think it was about an hour he spoke. But there are many examples, and he wasn't a lawyer,
Right.
but the lessons are there, whether you're a lawyer, non-lawyer, like you said, accountant, engineer, even construction companies. It's invaluable. So what would you say is a good tip for a new attorney or someone that wants to make a change or transition?
I think that you have to protect the moat. There's
Meaning?
a saying. You have some clients that are really important to you.
Right.
Continuously work with them. Do personal things for them. If it's a good client, just send them tickets to a ball game or theater or something. Do things that they're not expecting, okay? To show them that you have interest. And then try to learn new things. It's important.
Sounds like you're a marriage counselor, Don.
Yeah, I'm divorced after 25 years. So,
But that sounds like a marriage counselor.
It didn't work on me. In fact, Jerry Parisi was asking for elder lawyers. I gave him 3. Some people are hooked up on price. Some people are hooked up on ethnicity. Some people are hooked up on location.
Right, exactly.
So what you do is you give, and you have more credibility. It's not like, this is my guy. Use that guy or don't.
Right.
You show you have knowledge, you have credibility, and you offer them a choice.
So, just to wrap up, I think it's important to say there's credibility is very key, and showing up is important, listening is important, but also, and it's very important to understand that networking isn't just for somebody that's just starting out in any industry. It's for any age, and that it can help build your practice. Whether you're 25, 10 years out, 2 years out in any type of practice, middle age, whatever you want to call that, 50, 60 these days. Bottom line is, get out there, get off the only texting and internet. Go face to face, meet people. You never know. Once again, this is Legal Straight Talk. I'm Brett Harrison, and thank you again, Don, for your helpful insights. And you can catch us on local channel 20 of Cablevision or at hlgny.com or Madhouse TV. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Jerry Parisi. Join Tom Neely and Tommy Marr right here on Cablevision Channel 20 each week for an interesting episode of The Long Island View.